you want to pull the party, the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting for them. Because capable of not voting for them, they don't have to listen to you. I promise you that. I worked within the Democratic Party. I didn't listen or have to listen to anything on the left while I was working in the Democratic Party because the left had nowhere to go.
Right there. The left had nowhere to go.
If you
may bristle at Lawrence O'Donnell saying that, but that's politics. That is literally politics. You have leverage at your disposal. That leverage are pitchforks because you don't have the money to, put out dollars. And with those pitchforks, you make it extremely clear that we are not in your camp. We are outside of the political space, and we will support or not support according to whether or not a person backs a policy or distance themselves from that policy. John Kasich will be getting a full speaking slot at the Democratic convention, the virtual convention that they're going to have. AOC will get 60 seconds. And you already know what AOC is going to say in that 60 seconds. Basically, rah-rah for the Democrats, and we got to get Biden and Harris in, and this is probably going to be the most progressive presidency in the history of presidencies, etc. It's going to be nonsense. But I just want you to understand the dynamic that is taking place here. They give Kasich a full slot because they are trying to get those voters. They are trying to get disaffected Republicans and people who have every capability of voting for Donald Trump to vote for them. And so they will put a Kasich in a full slot. They will lean in that direction regarding policy. They lean in that direction anyway. Kasich probably could be a Democrat. He would probably just be more of a conservative one. And so from the standpoint of the way they frame the world, we already got AOC. AOC is already going to back us. We don't have to give AOC anything, and AOC would back us. AOC would still tell her people to go and vote for Joe Biden. It wouldn't have mattered one iota. AOC didn't even have to be on the slate for the night, and nothing would have changed. That 60-second nothing slot that she was writing poems about gets across how little they regard you. Why do you think I'm putting so much emphasis on this? Whatever you want to think of AOC, in the context of what the left considers, you could say they're darling, they're the liberal darling. It's AOC. She's the one who's considered the future of the party when people are looking at it from the standpoint of the left. And yet, that quote unquote future of the party is only going to get 60 seconds in a kind of throwaway performative slot that she can get. If you want the Democratic Party to listen to you and to regard you, always, reflexively, religiously, like the battered wife backing a party that doesn't give any or doesn't care about you one iota, doesn't even particularly like you all that much. It's not the way of going about getting your policies espoused upon the world. And this insult of sorts to AOC of giving her 60 seconds, or the slap in the face or the middle finger that goes to the left and giving her like a 60-second slot, and that is rational. As appalling as you may think it is, that the overwhelming majority of the Democratic Party will want Medicare for all, the elimination of all student debt, a Green New Deal, the increases of taxes, the fact that the party, when asked, overwhelmingly agreed with those things. The fact that the American public agreed with those things. And the Democratic Party, who has Democratic in the name, tells you, your supporters, to kick rocks and was willing to basically tank it all in order to beat the person that was pushing for those things, and you still support them, makes it a rational act. So yeah, they are going to pick Kamala Harris. They are going to pick Joe Biden. They are going to say, no, we're not backing any of these policies, because they have your support, whether you back those policies or not. You incentivize their behavior. If you're shocked or perturbed that they pick Kamala Harris, if you're shocked or perturbed that Joe Biden can tell 88% of the Democratic Party to go fuck themselves by not supporting Medicare for all when the rest of the party does, if you're perturbed by that and you still find yourself voting for that Joe Biden and that Kamala Harris because Donald Trump is just so uniquely disgusting, then don't complain about them taking you for granted. Don't call it appalling. Politics is about leverage. Politics is not about giving any particular thing away. In this very specific case, the thing that is given away is that leverage, especially when Joe Biden, Kamala Harris will get your undying support regardless almost of what they do, as long as they keep the monsters, specifically Donald Trump, at bay. It's a rational choice for them to take you for granted, whether you're lefties or whether you're blacks. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. AOC will get her 60-second pre-recorded speech for the DNC. The question becomes, honestly, at the end of it, brass tacks, would you do something different if you were in their shoes? The answer is probably not. Now, African Americans are in the same boat as lefties on this. The choice of Kamala Harris, a person who is of Jamaican and apparently Indian descent, is not a giveaway to blacks. If you are indeed bringing somebody on that is going to be a fighter for black issues, that you could say, hey, I'm giving you this person because I want to show you that we're not taking you for granted, then the person who you choose is not Kamala Harris. The person you choose is the person who's going to push through and fight for, vociferously, policy that will be in the best interests of that particular minority group. You are using identity as kind of a thing unto itself in order to choose somebody, as if the identity is untethered from the policies themselves. The fact of the matter is oftentimes the identity is untethered to the party, to the policies, which is in part the problem. Putting someone in of a particular identity is not, in fact, doing something for that particular identity. Obama was black. His blackness didn't stop him from giving 95% of the wealth to the top 1% of income gains and basically giving Wall Street a pass while letting homeowners go bust. His blackness didn't stop him from that one iota. And yet, for whatever reason, people still have this belief that because you put a black face or a gay face or a trans face or whatever in a particular spot, that is something for that particular community. I understand it may be a landmark in the sense of that person taking that position first, but that is not indicative of that particular person or that particular party doing something that is beneficial for that community just because of that person's race or that person's identity. That is clownish at this point. Given a half Jamaican, half Indian woman, it's not a giveaway to the black community. What's a giveaway, or what would be in the best interest of the African American community, where you can really make that case of saying we're doing this because we want to do something that's in their best interest, is policy. If you're telling me that Black Lives Matter and you have all of these people who are dying from COVID-19, I'm asking you, do they matter in the context of something beyond cops? And if they do matter in something beyond the context of cops, then yeah, Medicare for all would be the policy. Do you care about all of these people who have a difficult time going to school because of the debt and whatnot that's put on their back? So elimination of all student debt and making state colleges and universities free of charge. Yeah, that would directly benefit that group. Increasing the minimum wage, that would benefit that group. Meaning there are policies that you can legitimately take that would benefit a particular group that will be working in that group's best interests. That is not tethered to what that person looks like. A white person could have advocated for those very same policies that would have benefited that community that much better. In which case, that white person would be better in that slot than that black woman. I hope you understand what I mean by this. Whether it's the AOC thing of giving her 60 seconds, or for that matter, whether it's this issue, dealing with choosing Kamala Harris as a running mate and trying to make it and pass that off as somebody who's basically in the camp of the black community, I think both of those things bespeak of the same issue. Basically, what we're talking about is a party that has gotten so accustomed to people being so terrified of the monsters in the other party that they can legitimately take for granted and not even have to put up real symbolism. They didn't even put Medicare for all in the platform. They didn't even put Medicare for all in that showpiece that Nancy Pelosi passed in Congress. I'm making the point that they don't do those things. They don't reach out for you in those real ways. They only offer you symbolism or performative justice because that's what you've gotten to the point of accepting. Think about it. Put yourself in their position for the moment. 90% of the races are won by the side with the most cash. Now, even if you had an idea that you liked Medicare for all, you liked the wealth tax, you like the elimination of student debt, or Green New Deal, even if you like those things, your ability to actively push for those things is always going to be leveraged against the people who are giving you the cash that you need to get in office in the first place. And if the modus operandi that you use to get in office is dependent upon that cash, where you can put ads and everything else, then it is almost impossible for you to run for those policies. How can you advocate for policies that the people who are putting money in your G-string are absolutely and entirely against? How will you get that cash? How will you get that nice spot when you get out of politics? How will your kid get that particular advantage into those particular companies if you aren't accepting that cash? And for that matter, if you don't accept it, there may be another Democrat waiting behind you in the wings, waiting, salivating to accept the cash that you chose to turn down. Even if you wanted to do all of those good lefty things, if you're running in the way of a typical Democrat, it becomes almost impossible to do so. The minimalist of things is what you can get away with. And that minimalist of things that you convince your donors, your owners, or the owner class to say, look, I need to be least worst to get elected, but you're still going to get good stuff when I get in office. That's the least worst. Or that's the argument of you have nowhere else to go, a blue matter who. Basically, regardless of what any particular Democrat may want, they're still governed by a system that is ensconced in cash and is corrupt to its core. Because it's ensconced in cash and corrupt to its core, the people's platform and the policies that the people want are not necessarily the policies that the people of means care about, because they have those things. They can pay for their kid to go to school. They can pay to get the health care they need. They don't want that wealth tax because that adversely affects them. They don't want workers' rights because those workers' rights adversely affect their ability to make that much more profit off of those workers, or for that matter, have to cost money in order to keep those workers safe. Those are not things that are on their agenda. This owner class has a fundamentally different point of view in regards to what is necessary in our society than lefties, which makes it folly that you would have this quote-unquote big tent of the capitalists and the lefties. And we've seen from our own eyes over the course of the last 50 years who wins that argument. It's not the lefties. Democrats care about the people of means. Those people of means have a certain political priority. That political priority is not the same as what the majority of Democrats want, or for that matter, the majority of the public wants. And so instead of getting actual policies that would have an affirmative case of putting this person or that person in that office, instead you get theater. Here's this person of color for the vice presidential spot, and this is authority to blacks. Here is AOC. See, we gave her a slot. Yeah, 60 seconds, but we gave her a slot. Here's Sanders, who's going to say how awesome Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are and how progressive this presidency is going to be. You get theater. When the reality of it is, it's the policy that makes the material difference. This is a slap in the face to lefties. Kamala Harris is a slap in the face to blacks. By the same token, it is a rational act to do those things if you full well believe that the people who you're doing those things to would accept it. And in both scenarios, it most likely will be accepted because people are so terrified of the monsters at bay. I'll leave it here. I mean, like I said, if it was you and you were in that position, unless you're an ideological actor that comes up with a funding mechanism that bucks with a party trend, then you're going to be stuck by the same rule set that the other people are engaged in, which is spending 75% of your time begging for cash and basically leaning towards the sides of the cash, which goes to the whole notion of blue no matter who and this other stuff. All of those slogans were only there to avoid accountability, to get people into a headspace where whatever bad the Democrat is, the Republican is worse, so I just vote for the Democrat. Or if you're a lefty, or if you're African American, if you're Hispanic, you have nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else for you to go other than that particular Democrat. So even if you don't like it, you got to suck it up. 2020 should reveal something that was dramatically important. That all of those policies that you bought into, that the party was willing to tank it all in order to stop Sanders, the person who also was the backer of those policies. If you want to get anything done politically, meaning from the standpoint of getting your policy agenda accomplished continuously, as the battered wife fixing the guy that just punched her in her eye sandwich, at some point you got to stop. And at some point, you need to function from the standpoint of policy, not this notion of party. I understand Donald Trump is bad, but let's just be very clear. The reason you have Trump in that office in the first place is for this exact motif, the least worst nonsense, the no accountability nonsense. That needs to stop. They can give you a slap in the face by giving AOC 60 seconds while giving Kasich a full slot. It can be a slap in the face to saying, hey, we're going to choose this person entirely on identity terms because Joe Biden wants to make black people feel that they're not being taken advantage of. I mean, I'll leave it here. I don't want to overly bitch about it. I'm going to say like, share, and of course, subscribe. Thanks all. They've changed my system around, so I have a hard time seeing super chats now. But what I would do is this. When I get the opportunity, scratch that. Wesley Walker Jr. Tulsi shredded Kamala in 30 seconds in that debate. Yes, she did. Jordan Brown. She has no cultural ties to Jamaica and very little to Black America. She grew up in a wealthy household, Indian household. Indian America should be proud, yes. But it's nothing to do with working class Black Americans. Yeah, agreed. That's my point. It's a slap in the face. It's a performative action. It's not something that materially benefits that particular community. It's done entirely for the optics of it all. I'm making the point that until you no longer accept that level of symbolism, until you stop accepting it, that's all you're going to get. And from their vantage point, it is a rational action to not give you anything if they don't have to give you anything, when what they have or what they consider to be their political leverage and even their own political ideology is somewhat limited and oriented around the owner class. Until that stops, and until people get to the point of saying you accept the policy or you don't, you lose or you win based on whether or not you accept policy or not. Until you get to that point, there is nothing in your system to incentivize or push for any level of change. You will get the same weak hacks of Democrats who will go to Congress and not push for your things that you want, but tell you that they believe in those things. It needs to change. Like, share, and of course, subscribe. I'll see you guys in a few. Thanks all.